Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chase Younts. To my right, over in Columbus, Ohio, Brady King. Brady, what's going on?
Not much. Just ready to get back after missing a week. Home game this week, so Saturday is going to be more taken up in that regard. But once again, just ready to dive into this.
A game in which you'll be there, a game in which I might be there. We'll figure that whole thing out. And if you guys are watching, obviously, Matt Ricketts isn't on the program right now. Hopefully, Matt will be back next week. We'll see what happens with that. If you guys are watching, please like, subscribe, and comment. We appreciate all the support that we've had over the course of this season and the years prior. We'll get into the show. We're going to talk about a couple of matchups that are going on Friday and Saturday. Not the biggest of matchups, would say this week. The next weekend and the weekend after, you've got the second and third weekend in October. I mean, we've got some brilliant matchups that we're going to be able to cover and talk about, which are, I mean, they're fascinating matchups to say the least. And we're going to have a special guest on next week talking about Ohio State and Oregon. But first, Ohio State's got Iowa. We'll talk about them in a moment. Friday night football. Syracuse and UNLV. One, this is a weird matchup just because, you know, of the two teams that normally never play each other. And number two, UNLV, number 25 in the country. Their original quarterback decided that, you know, the NIL and the red shirt, the whole thing was just odd. And he did not, you know, he's not playing the rest of the season. And you have a new quarterback in there. It's Friday, 9 p.m. on FS1, former Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord going down there. Brady, I know he's kind of looked at Syracuse a little bit this season, just to obviously see how Kyle McCord's doing. What are the thoughts on McCord so far?
I mean, they've really turned Syracuse into a complete air raid offense. I mean, he threw the ball over 50 times against Holy Cross. Never would have imagined Kyle McCord would do that in his college career. But they really rely on him a lot, and he's made a lot of good throws this year and had a lot of big numbers, had big passing stats. He looks good. I mean, it's not really that different. He's always been a solid pocket passer for sure. Even at Ohio State, whenever he had a clean pocket, he delivered the ball. It's just the fact that when stuff gets messy, he just always folds under pressure. Was the issue at Ohio State, but at Syracuse, it's honestly a perfect fit, and I think he might have chose the right school after looking through everything because he's putting up the best numbers possible. They're winning a decent amount of games. They did lose to Stanford, and he threw a couple picks, but other than that, I think that he's been a good player this year, one of the top quarterbacks in the ACC.
Yeah, when everything's been on time and rhythm and everything else, Kyle McCord is, you know, one of the best as they come. I mean, just trying to deliver the football and play protective football on top of that. So Syracuse, obviously, they've had a pretty good season overall. Again, like you mentioned, that Stanford loss was a tough one for them. It was also a Friday night game, one of the weirdest matchups I think I've ever seen, probably coming up to this game as well. I know Matthew Sluka, he, you know, was their guy. And everything else, wanted to see what he could do, and it's just there. This is an interesting UNLV team to look at. Undefeated on the year. They beat Houston. They played Utah Tech. They beat Kansas on the road. Fresno State. I mean, this team is trying to bide for that group of 5 bid later on in the season. Syracuse isn't ranked, but this would be a pretty big win for them going forward so they can stay on track. And when they take on a team like Boise State, you know, toward the end of October, I mean, this is a huge game that's at home for UNLV. Thoughts on them?
I think it's a really big game for UNLV and even Syracuse just to try to get, you know, a ranked win. But for UNLV, this is huge. Obviously, they're trying to, like you said, trying to be the Group of 5 playoff representative. Lost Matthew Sluka because of NIL reasons. A very odd situation for sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they put the hammer down on Fresno State last week. They beat Fresno State worse than Michigan did, and that's a decent thing to – and really wasn't even that close. So that was interesting to see, even without their starting quarterback. But this should be an interesting game in Vegas. I feel like Kyle McCord has another chance to, you know, have a little bit of the spotlight because people will be watching this game since it's – some people will. I guess there's another Friday night game, but I think some people will be watching this game for sure.
Yeah, I mean the main Fox game is Michigan State and Oregon, but I mean, it's Michigan State's got a gauntlet of playing against Ohio State and then going out west to play Oregon on a shorter week, by one day. So it's it stuff doesn't look great for them in that regard. And Oregon obviously has the game with Ohio State coming up next week. But off that note, Syracuse, UNLV's favored by 6.5. The totals at 58.5. Are we picking UNLV or Syracuse?
I think I'm going to pick UNLV again. I think they're going to keep rolling. I think it should be I think it's going to be high scoring, but I do think UNLV wins.
Yeah, I'm going to go with UNLV as well. I think they'll cover the spread barely. I'm going to go 31-24. UNLV wins that one. We'll go on to the next game, noon on ABC and ESPN Plus. Missouri and A&M. Interesting one. A&M's favored by 2.5. The total 48.5. Missouri. So we've looked at what's happened with them. They won their first couple of games. They didn't give up any points in the first two games. They won, against Murray State and Buffalo combined 89-0. Then Boston College goes over to Missouri and they gave them some fits. 27-21 was that score. And then last week, Vanderbilt came in there and gave them an absolute game. It was a 2-overtime thriller. Missouri ended up winning 30-27. Yeah. They go on the road for their first road test of the season. And again, going into Kyle Field is a very tall task, especially for a Missouri team that's kind of struggled over these last couple of weeks. Thoughts, Brady, on this?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Missouri's looked very shaky. I don't think they're as good as they were last year. They returned some key pieces, but they still lost people that people are forgetting about. And I mean, that number 9 ranking is solely because of last year, because they're not looking the greatest. And I think this could be trouble for them in a hostile environment because, like you said, Boston College gave them huge fits. I mean, it looked like at one point Boston College was going to win that game. Mm-hmm. Vanderbilt, again, gave them huge fits. Neither of those teams are great teams. So this will be tough for them. Now, I do think – it's not like I think Texas A&M is a great team. It's more the fact that it's on the road, and Missouri I don't think is the 9th best team in the country right now. So it's going to be interesting to see. I like Texas A&M's defense. Their D-line is good. They've got talent there. And I feel like they could definitely apply pressure to Brady Cook. But I think Luther Burden's going to have more targets than he's been getting recently. He hasn't had quite the year people have been expecting, but definitely an intriguing game for the most part.
Would you say the pass rush would be the way A&M has to win this game, or is there a certain player on offense that you want to highlight? If A&M wants to pull off, I know they're favored at home, but if they want to pull off the virtual upset, how are they going to do it?
Yeah, I think it's pass rush. Don't let Brady Cook have time, because if he has time, I mean, he has a good receiving core. They're going to get open. Yeah. And that's how they'll lose. But if they can keep this a low-scoring game, Texas A&M needs to – because Texas A&M's not – their offense just isn't that good. And Connor Wegman, I mean, he's just overrated. Like, everyone that had him hyped up before the year to potentially be a first-rounder, that's just because there's just not a lot of people you can say are going to be first-rounders because it's a weak class. So they tried to hype up a guy like Connor Wegman. When you just watch him play, average player. So I definitely think it's the defense and the pass rush.
And pick. Are we picking A&M the cover and win this game as a favorite, or is Missouri going to go in there and get the dub?
I'm going to take Texas A&M to win.
Okay. All right.
Missouri takes their first loss of the year.
All right. I'm going to be on the opposite side of things. I think Missouri is going to come out and have a stronger showing on offense early, have enough – I don't say cushion, but I think they're going to play with the lead most of this game. I think it's going to be a tight game, though. I will say that. I think it will be lower scoring. I'm going to go 23-20. Missouri wins this game. It's going to be an interesting one. We'll go down to the game that you'll be at, I might be at. We'll figure that whole thing out here in the next 24 hours or so. Iowa, Ohio State, 3:30 p.m. CBS. Ohio State favored by 20.5. The total 44.5. Iowa's only loss this year was against Iowa State, a game in which they blew, a double-digit lead at home against Rocco Beck and those guys. They're coming off of a victory at Minnesota last week, 31-14. having some sort of confidence coming into Columbus, but Ohio State out of the gate has been rolling the start of the season. Brady, who's a guy you were going to keep an eye out for while the Buckeyes are wearing the gray this Saturday?
On Ohio State or Iowa?
Both.
On both. So Iowa, in this game, the guy I'm keeping my eye out for is Jay Higgins, their linebacker, middle linebacker. He's probably known as the best middle linebacker in the country. Probably going to be first team all conference. Really good player. He's going to be key to stop it. If they want to stop the Ohio State run game, I mean, it's him. Like, he's the guy we're have to run away from, and very good player. Ohio State wise, the guy I think that's going to have to a guy that has to have a big game, and outside of the obvious being Will Howard, I think Carnell Tate is going to have a big game, because I think Iowa has the best defensive coordinator in the country, Phil Parker. Their defense is amazing year after year. It's once again will be really good, and they always have they draw up some crazy schemes. Like they're the most confusing college defense to play QB against, and so I definitely think they know who Jeremiah Smith is now, and obviously who Emeka Egbuka is. So they're going to be their calls are going to be heavily based off of where those two are lined up, and so Carnell Tate I think is going to have to win some matchups, and that's going to be the way we hit some pass plays, I think, this game. Not that Jeremiah and Emeka can't. It's just I think Carnell, who wide receiver 3-wise, I mean, he still has over 200 yards in 4 games. So he's been very consistent, and he just needs to keep that up.
Yeah, it's going to be more of a volume thing with Carnell. He's had 14 catches in 4 games this season. Going to be big to get him involved. It's interesting because Ohio State, with us having such a great run game, it's not like you can load the box and play free high safety and stuff. You're asking for death. And if you space it out, if you're playing 2 high safeties, Ohio State can just run the football. So it's like they're going to have to be on their A game in that regard if they decide to play that 2 high safety look, and they have to win matchups on the line of scrimmage, and the linebackers have to be able to fill gaps. And if that's the case, you've got cloud coverage on Emeka, cloud coverage on Jeremiah Smith. Again, that might not even do anything, but that also leaves the one-on-one, like you mentioned, for Carnell Tate. So,
yeah, because I saw a funny tweet.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't even meant to be funny. It was an Oregon fan, and he was like, I'm not even that scared, that nervous, to be honest. He said, as long as we stop 4-2 and then stop Henderson and Judkins in the run game, we should be good.
That's a lot.
Said, yes, as long as you stop the best wide receiver and best running back duo in the nation, you'll be good. It's that simple. Just stop the best. It's like that's the good thing, is you can go whichever way you want to win these games. If it needs to be more of a throwing game, we can do that. If it needs to be a game where we're pushing it on the ground, we can do that. So and it'll be interesting against this Iowa team with a great defense, a good test. They'd be ranked, if they never blew that game to Iowa State, they'd probably be borderline top 15. So
what would you say the biggest key for Ohio State on Saturday would be to win this game?
I would say is to stop the run, load the box, instead, because their running backs ran for a ton of yards. Caleb Johnson, he's had a huge year. He's from 685 yards and 9 touchdowns from Hamilton, Ohio, who I'm calling a Hamilton high school game on Friday, believe it or not. Yeah. Because Caleb Johnson, I remember when he was in high school, he was fairly highly rated, just like Ohio standards. And he said, like yesterday, he was like, even if Ohio State offered me, I wouldn't have gone there. It's like, all right, buddy, I'm sure you would have gone to Iowa.
Interesting.
Totally believable. But it's like when people say that stuff when they don't get offers, he's just trying to stir the pot. So hopefully we can shut him down.
Yeah, make some media attention and everything else. But nonetheless, he's had a great season so far. 700 yards, 9 touchdowns. I agree with you on that. And I think the big thing is Ohio State, they go off to a fast start and make this Iowa team throw the football, because we already know who the quarterback is in Caden McNamara. So, I mean,
we're 0-1 with an asterisk against Cade McNamara.
That's true, with the asterisk as well, and the fact that they ran the football like the entire game and play with the lead. If you're telling me that Cade McNamara is going to have to try to come back to win a football game, good luck.
Well, they were about to go up 14-0, and then he threw a pick to Bryson Shaw to keep the game alive.
Yeah, if you guys have watched for this long, you guys know the thoughts on Bryson Shaw from the entire Ohio State community and me and Brady. I mean, it's just not the best.
He's
a
very memorable player. At least we went from him as we did go from him as our free safety to Caleb Downs. So it's
how do we roll from like one of the worst safeties to like one of the best safety in college football? It's pretty wild.
Makes no sense, but I'm happy about it.
Hey, man, I mean, started from the bottom in that regard. Now we're here, so that's the roll. Ohio State, do they cover? Do they win? What's the goal? What do you think, Brady?
What's the spread at right now?
20.5 right now.
I don't think we cover. I just think no, I think we're good enough to cover, but I just don't think this will be one of those type of games. I think it's going to be one of those games where we're kind of like staying close with them for a while. We're going to struggle a little bit on offense for the first time this year because we haven't struggled on offense yet. Just a couple struggles, and then we'll get into a groove. I think we win by like 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm going to go 34-17. I think it'll be a closer first half, and then try to figure out some ways, get some running lanes and everything else in the second half. And
I think Cade McNamara is going to throw 1 touchdown pass in this game.
And I'm going to piggyback off of that, and he'll throw 2 interceptions and lose a fumble. So
I can see that for sure.
3 turnover day for Cade McNamara.
He's going to throw an interception to Caden McDonald.
I would love that.
That would be
I would love that. That'd be an interesting conversation after the game, but we'll go to Saturday night. So this is not normal for national championship games to be rematched the following season.
Right.
It's not normal for national championship games to be rematched in the same conference.
Yep.
And it's not normal for national championship rematches that are in the same conference to not have that heightened sense, because people know Michigan isn't necessarily the best team out there.
No.
And Washington isn't even ranked. So this is definitely one of the weirdest rematches from a national championship that I think we've ever seen. I'm not even going to say in college football history. I think probably in football history.
Yeah.
Like this is such a weird game to look at. But Michigan, Washington.
Well, the fact that the reigning national champion and the one out of this, the one that actually won, and the one that's ranked, and the one that's a blue blood, and their opponent from last season has 2 losses, is the underdog.
Yeah. Yeah, Washington's favored by 2.5, and the total at 41.5.
They have the better quarterback.
Yeah, they
have a quarterback. That's all you got to have.
A quarter. That is true. Their quarterback, the guy's name, Will Rogers, as people know. 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. Can't say the least about Davis Warren and Alex Orji, but again, Michigan's 4-1. Got to give credit where credit's due in that regard. They go out to the Pacific Northwest. Our friend Noah Eagle's going to be on the call for that one. We'll see him next week on the show, talking Ohio State and Oregon. When you look at this matchup, Brady, this is this is so weird. The lowest ticket's $57 for this game. Like it's a national championship. It's a national championship rematch on national TV. All this other stuff. I'm having trouble piecing this, man. I'm having trouble piecing this entire thing together. I want to tune into this if I had the opportunity, but like, am I missing anything?
I don't even know. This game is going to be weird to watch. Like, I can't even picture these 2 teams out on the same field right now. Like in Washington, it's just going to be weird.
Yeah, like
and Washington's leading receiver is a former Michigan receiver, Giles Jackson, who played in the Big House, rematching against Michigan already in 2021 when Washington played them non-conference.
That's right.
And Cade McNamara threw for 40 passing yards that game. They still won by like 30.
So this is the 3rd time they've played each other in 4 years, believe it or not.
Yes.
Like that's
so far Washington's 0-2, and yet they're still favored in the 3rd matchup.
Crazy. And again, like you mentioned with Giles Jackson, their other receiver, and Denzel Boston, 30 catches for 412 yards, and 7 of the touchdowns that Will Rogers has thrown this year have been to Boston.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very interesting game. Now, Khalil Mullings, he's having a good season so far, 540 yards, 6 touchdowns, averaging 7 yards a carry. Thoughts on the senior from Massachusetts, Brady?
I just think my take about Donovan Edwards is aging better and better as time.
Yeah, and I think Matt's take is just, it's just like, spoiled milk. And
I mean, I've had my bad takes that I've taken back, and this
everyone's had
take, this Donovan Edwards take, riding on it, I wrote on it. I told Matt and Chris Drew, he was on here. I told both of them,
yep.
Donovan Edwards is a nobody. He's not that good, if at all, and he's the second running back again. Khalil Mullings is way better than Donovan Edwards. It's not even like any Michigan fan would tell you that at this point.
Mullings has double the amount of yards than Donovan Edwards and has only 18 more carries.
Exactly. And that is the crazy thing is it's like
alarming.
The defense still they definitely fear Khalil Mullings more.
Oh yeah.
I think he's a good running back. He's the Big Ten is loaded with running backs this year, but Khalil Mullings is top 5 for sure. With obviously the Ohio State guys and the Nick Singleton from Penn State. I mean, it's a loaded conference with running backs.
Yeah.
But Mullings is definitely up there, and he's the best. Him and Colston Loveland are the best players on the Michigan offense for sure.
Loveland, 23 catches, 228 yards, and a touchdown. They got to try to find more ways to get him going. As a big-time pass catcher over the middle. So we're going to pick this one. I'm having a hard time. So Michigan's 4-1, number 10 in the country. Again, Washington's 3-2, unranked. Washington is favored. Washington has lost the last 2 meetings in the 2020s decade, and we'll see these teams play a couple more times in these next couple of years.
Indeed.
It's out in the Pacific Northwest. It's a night game. It's a national championship rematch. Does Will Rogers give Washington revenge? Like what are we looking at here, Brady? What's the thought process?
Yeah, so I've kind of gone back and forth on this. I don't even know what to think, trying to just gauge it. I do think the Wolverines will win the game. I think they will upset Washington this week. But I don't know. I guess I'm not confident in it at all. Maybe I'm just way off base. Maybe this is my least confident pick in a while, but I'm going Michigan in a close game.
I'm gonna say the under will hit. It's 41.5. I think the under is gonna hit, and I'm gonna go 20-16. I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'll say Washington's gonna they're gonna move down the field in a 2-minute situation, and I think they're gonna try to run the football a couple times. I think Michigan's going to stonewall them, and I think they're going to go out and failure of downs down in the red zone, and Michigan's going to win this football game by 4. I think it's going to be. I'm not going to say an ugly game, but it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a very low scoring football game. If you love stuff from the 70s and the 80s, go on ahead and watch it. All right, that's all I got to tell you. I think it's going to be a very low scoring game in that regard. 20-16 Michigan wins is my prediction on that. Man, we've got a great week of college football this weekend, but I mean, if you're talking about it, this is a great, I'm gonna say good weekend, but the following 2 weekends, I mean, they're fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic. You've got, just a small preview of it. Ohio State, Oregon's the big one on NBC. Penn State, USC is this CBS game. It's a top 12 matchup at the moment. That's going to be really fun to watch. Red River rivalry, 3:30. I mean, couldn't have asked for a better time slot in that regard. LSU and Ole Miss will be a night game as well on ABC, but everybody's attention is probably going to be turned over unless you're down south, going to be turned over to Ohio State and Oregon. My Bearcats as well, second team, are playing against UCF. That should be an interesting one. It's a 3:30 game, so I'm glad that they're playing then and not at the same time as Ohio State as they did this past weekend. And then the following week, I mean, you've got 2 great SEC matchups. You've got Bama, Tennessee, third Saturday in October. Georgia, Texas. We don't know what time that's going to be at. Miami versus Louisville. That's about an hour and a half from where I'm at right now. Might find myself there. Michigan, Illinois. At Illinois, too, so that makes it interesting. But there's some great football games coming up in this month of October, to say the least. How excited are you, Brady?
Very excited, very nervous at the same time. This Oregon game is going to be all-time level stressful and just nerve-wracking, and it's going to be a long day, long night.
It definitely will be. So let's catch our breath. Let's watch some football this weekend, and hopefully the Ohio State Buckeyes get the job done. For that being said, Brady King, Columbus. I'm Chase Younts in Cincinnati, and we will see you guys next time.